Hey everybody, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys, trader and technical analyst the last 14 and a half years. We're going to check in on Bitcoin and crypto. We had weekend weakness, but we're still getting the most likely scenario. We're going to check in with what we were talking about last live stream, which was a week ago, and anticipated most likely scenarios are playing out. So we'll update that as far as where we stand. We'll look at some pockets of relative strength in the altcoin space. Litecoin making some noise. Let's hear it for Litecoin. Let's go. All right. So Bitcoin, first things first. Again, let's just go back to the most likely scenario from the live stream of last week. The most likely scenario was look for a bounce top. And I was saying pretty soon because we were extended at that point. That was the bounce was significantly underway. And we were then looking for, first off, tightening 12-hour ranges. And that has now developed into tightening daily ranges. So I anticipate that we are going to keep tightening up within the flush days range, potentially all week. And it depends on which coin you're looking at as far as, the probability of that taking place. But, Bitcoin can head up to 100,000 from here and top out. And if we don't break 102.6 thousand, then we pull back. Next thing you know, it's the end of the week and we're in a tightening daily range. So the most important levels that I care about are the low of the flush. And again, this is for all coins, the low of the flush and the high of the bounce. That is what we care the most about. Any coin that has broken the high of its bounce, like Litecoin, stands out with clear relative strength. Any coin that broke the low of the flush, and nothing comes to mind, we'll look through a bunch of names, but there was at least one name I've looked at in the past week that has done it. But those names stand out with relative weakness. And anything otherwise is just doing the most likely scenario. And so we had a Bitcoin 4-hour falling wedge we were keeping an eye on over the weekend, saying that if we break this low and see no follow through, we're watching for the falling wedge. So the falling wedge broke bull. Okay, now we need to confirm a 4-hour uptrend. We've topped out. We're trying to set a 4-hour higher low, and we must break the bounce high for that to be the case. So you can be zoomed in and looking at the shorter term time frames, but for me, I'm finding the clarity on the daily chart, and that is where I am staying for now. The dominance chart is not giving us a whole lot of information. We know Bitcoin overall is stronger. In an ideal world, the bulls want to see, the bulls want to see the tightening daily range, break bull, of course, and to have that lead to a dominance drop, which shows us altcoins breaking bull as well and seeing a larger percentage move. As we know, nothing changes longer term with this dominance chart as long as we keep setting weekly higher lows, and there is plenty of space where even if we do see dominance drop and weekly bounces with altcoins leading the way, we can still form weekly higher lows on this dominance chart. So a lot has to change if we're going to say altcoins are the focus. The broader market, stocks, are seeing a good sign. This is a tightening daily range for the NASDAQ. This is the futures chart, and we've just been in a standard equilibrium for quite some time now. And we've had a pattern develop where we see Friday weakness, a Monday gap down, and then buying of the dip. Friday weakness, gap down Monday, follow through, but bulls buy the dip. Friday weakness, gap down, bulls buy the dip sooner and faster. And now we just have a gap down after Friday weakness and bulls aggressively buying this dip. I started today 5 hours ago with a 60-40 probability that this will break bull due to prolonged trends. After watching how today has traded, that probability is now 70-30 that we're going to break bull. And obviously that's going to benefit sentiment. It wouldn't be good for crypto bulls if the NASDAQ were to break bear and test 6-week lows. We're going to be looking up towards all-time highs. So the bulls still have some resistances to work through, but it's a great start to the week. And with that, looking at a couple crypto stocks, then we'll get to altcoins here. Is the NASDAQ rising wedge a concern? I don't have a NASDAQ rising wedge. This is a double top for me. It's a break by a fraction of a percent. It's a standard equilibrium. If I were going to call this a rising wedge, I would have needed a bull break here with no follow through, another bull break with no follow through. Instead, it is, for me, just a standard equilibrium. All right, coin. So coin has earnings coming up. Again, just tightening range. High, low, lower high, higher low. You've heard me say it 100 times. If you are going to get good at any pattern in markets, make it the equilibrium. They are everywhere. Tightening ranges, constricting ranges, breaking and then leading to volatility. But earnings for coin is going to dictate how this equilibrium breaks. MSTR, just sideways, not much going on. Lower highs are clear on the daily chart, but I care most about the monthly. Look at how tight we're getting on the monthly. So we're working on our third monthly inside bar in a row. Again, here's your constricting range. Here's your expansion of that range. And now we have another constricting range. So let's see what the 2-week chart looks like. So 2-week, we can view it as a high, low, lower high, and we're trying for another higher low here to keep tightening up. But essentially, we could say that MSTR is still constricting, and then we're going to see a break and a return of volume and volatility, and we know that's going to likely align with the Bitcoin weekly chart. The Bitcoin bulls like the fact that we did hold weekly EMA 12 again. You've heard me talk about how this is my guide where the bulls don't have anything to worry about if we're holding weekly EMA 12. So another battle, another test this past weekly candle that still held, but the MSTR monthly inside bars break will coincide with how Bitcoin breaks this multiple months of sideways action. That's all I really care about with the crypto stocks right now. Checking in on the miners, still just slow bleed weakness on MARA, slow bleed weakness on Riot. I was watching this on the weekly. That broke bear last week. No real follow through, but CLSK had a bullish earnings reaction, so a little bit of relative strength there. But again, still nothing going on in terms of bulls getting our attention in these miners. It can happen. It can happen quickly. We know that. But number one, we got to see Bitcoin head up to all-time highs if that's going to happen. And just make the bulls prove it. I mean, we have no better example than the altcoins showing us that, assuming the bulls are going to show up eventually, not necessarily a great strategy. Assuming the minor bulls are going to show up, not a great strategy. Again, don't need to nail the bottom. I would so much rather give up trying to catch the bottom and be instantly green, playing with the right trend and momentum, buying 10% plus higher than I would trying to nail a bottom, holding through red, having to stress about it every day. And so essentially I would lump together the miners with altcoins in terms of how they've been trading over the last few months. ETH, so again, same concept as Bitcoin, where we've got the most important levels are the range of the flush, the low and the high of the bounce. We faded back down, trying to set another higher low now. If we do not break the bounce high of 29.24, we are just going to look for something like this on the week. Bulls definitely want another little leg up here to create some space to tighten up. But that's the most likely scenario. We can easily stay within the range of this one daily candle for a very long time. Well, not a very long time, but a handful of days more at the least. And of course, as we know, ETH BTC has been junk. It still is. Even when we get a weekly bounce going, just exactly the opposite of what I said on the dominance chart. Even if we get a weekly bounce, there's a lot of space for a weekly lower high. Bulls have a ton of proving to do, and they have not been doing a good job at any point the last couple of months. So Litecoin, getting a shout out today. And what stands out to me on Litecoin is, number one, holding weekly EMA 12. Not many altcoins are holding weekly EMA 12 right now. And this was a stick save, little hockey analogy. Just barely getting over it, but we closed above it again, and we have now closed above weekly EMA 12 for many, many months. And what stands out to me is, of course, we broke the bounce high. That's a great sign. We could still definitely tighten up within this range, but LTC BTC, we talked about this recently, where LTC BTC on the weekly, if you look at every time that the EMA 12 has crossed the 26 bullish, there has been follow through. Some of the times, this is a month of follow through. Some of the times it's limited in terms of length of time. This bull cross only lasted a week. It was a big green candle for that week. But every time it's crossed bull, here was, 2 months of follow through. So the last 3 times, let's go to all of them. The last 5 times it's crossed bull since 2017, since I've been trading crypto, it has followed through every single time, with the shortest term follow through being 1 big week. So all that said, why do I care? We are on the verge of getting that bull cross. It's not official, but we are on the verge of it happening. So if there was ever a time to pay attention to Litecoin, it's now. And let's see if Litecoin can take the reins and lead us into some altcoin strength. But again, just comparative to so many other altcoins, it definitely is standing out. You look at Litecoin's, well, I just showed you the reasons. So let's see. I do still have a small amount of Litecoin. How many? Maybe 50? 50 Litecoin from 2017 that I just never did anything with. Litecoin's still my most profitable altcoin that I've ever traded, but we'll keep an eye on it. And it's funny, we have our Chart Guys chat room, and we have multiple crypto channels. And the main one, we have crypto alts, we have crypto general, which is news and stuff. And the main one is crypto BTC, LTC, and ETH. And that's just because it has been that from 2017 when we first created it. And, every bunch of months, we will get someone suggesting like, hey, why is Litecoin still here? Can we replace Litecoin with Ripple? Can we replace Litecoin with Sol? I think the most common requests are Sol, Litecoin, or Link to replace it. But every time someone requests for Litecoin to be removed, it then wakes up. And so we had someone request it a couple weeks ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. Let's see if that's the spark that the bulls needed. So if you're looking for an entry now in Litecoin, what are you looking for? Well, you got to wait for daily consolidation. In an ideal world, this is not a back burner setup, right? Because we're not in a breakout. So it's not a back burner setup, but the strongest moves will often see characteristics of back burners, even though it doesn't meet our official criteria to call it that trade setup. Just a quick example off the top of my head, the NASDAQ back here off of the October 2023 low just started trading like blue sky right off that low. Just V-shaped market melt up, and it started trading with back burners and exactly like a blue sky market trades long before it hit blue sky. And so you can see the characteristics shape up. All that said, what I would want to see is next hourly oversold conditions for Litecoin, have that be what marks a daily high or low. And that would show us, exactly what bulls want to see in terms of shorter term oversold conditions marking longer term higher lows. So I'm not saying all in Litecoin. I'm just saying now more than ever is a time to pay attention to Litecoin, especially if we get that weekly cross, which hasn't officially happened yet. And we'll keep an eye on this downtrend line on the daily chart. There's 3 touches there. That's valid enough for me. Okay, Ripple. Ripple had some relative strength as well. Most coins broke this consolidation low on Sunday, yesterday, and XRP did not. But again, same concept. High of the bounce, low of the flush. The one good thing about a coin like XRP with the current setup is, I don't want to use that low of the flush as my stop loss. That's way too far away. Unless I took a trade on that flush, sold partial, and now my break even is under it, then I can use that level as my stop loss. But if I'm, trading now, that level's way too far away. It's poor risk reward to use that as a stop. But we've got a closer level, 226. So with some wiggle room, that's now a key level that bulls need to maintain. But just chopping around sideways on XRP here, we'll run down the list of these alts real quick. Again, solid green day out there. BNB is another name that already broke the bounce high. There was significant relative strength in BNB yesterday. There's relative weakness today, but again, a lot of space for a higher low. Flush low, that's too far away. What level do we use? We use the little higher low that we formed here. If we zoom in, 12-hour chart, top of the bounce, 12-hour higher low was 557. So again, we have the altcoins are giving us a closer support level to be playing off of at this point. XTZ. So again, I'm going to run down this list right now, and what I'm looking at is, have we broken the high or the low of the flush? Because the names that have stand out. Otherwise, everybody else is just doing the most likely scenario. Low, high of the bounce, higher, low. Just looking to tighten up. Doge, nothing different. Trump was weaker. Trump dropped to the lower low. Trump will have to confirm a 4-hour inverse head and shoulders if anything's going to shift. SHIB, sideways. Again, higher low is our closer support to go off of, 1462. We're still watching that bounce high. XLM, still on the weaker side. 12-hour downtrend is a guide on XLM. EMA 12 rejecting the price. Again, still can easily trade within this range for a long time, but just slightly weaker as we're not bouncing off a new support level like many of these names are. OP. So again, there's that support level. A new one to go off of that XLM has not given us that new one yet. OP, nothing unusual. Ape doing the same thing. Dot doing the same thing. Sushi, same thing. Near a little bit more choppy, but still the same thing. Sol, classic equilibrium. Low, high, higher, low. We scout the lower high if we're going to continue tightening up. ICP, nothing changing. Nope, no, the same. Mana, the same. AVX, the same. Link, the same. ADA, the same. Again, can easily bounce for the daily lower high to keep tightening up. ENS. So you can see the vast majority, Atom's a little bit of strength getting towards that high. You can see the vast majority are all doing the same thing, just to slightly varying degrees. And when that's the case, it makes it easier to spot the coins that are doing something different. And there's only a few of them, at least on my list. Litecoin and BNB are the only ones that we just looked at. And I know there's other ones out there that aren't on my list, but Litecoin and BNB broke the high of the bounce. All right, I'm reading the chat now. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for likes and stuff. Talked a little bit about stocks. Get word. Okay, so that's a good point. So Litecoin notoriously, historically, has been a potential marker of the final, one of the final names to run before the altcoin market tops. But I would say this is a very different setup because obviously the altcoin market is not strong. It's not in uptrends with all names hitting highs and now Litecoin is just playing catch up. It's a very different macro setup with regards to that. So I would not fear that as far as it being an indication of the altcoin space as a whole. Thanks, Ed, for the likes and shares and stuff. SUI, do I think SUI hit its bottom? I assume it's doing the same thing as everybody else. So yeah, again, it's just your standard equilibrium. When you see this much volatility, when you dump that much and you bounce that much, you scout the equilibrium. We started scouting this equilibrium on the NASDAQ over 2 weeks ago as the most likely scenario. As soon as you see this support hold and a 50% bounce retracement, you know equilibrium is most likely. And so SUI is just doing that. And again, I highly suggest going back to watching the video last week showing the anticipation of these tightening ranges because you just see it time and time and time again. Low, high of the bounce, higher low. We are going to scout a lower high and a tightening range for most of the week. And the 4-hour trend is going to be our guide. And when bears confirm a 4-hour downtrend, we are likely setting that daily lower high. We've also got a name like SUI has the 12-hour EMA 12 as a guide. The last couple attempts have rejected. Do we set the daily lower high there again to keep tightening up? Maybe. That's a possibility. OM. So OM is obviously very different. It's rising wedgie. That's a rising wedge to be cautious of. So let's draw this 12-hour. Again, every time you bull break straight into consolidation, bull break straight into consolidation. This is now a potential 12-hour head and shoulders. Very often you see wedges turn into head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders. This is how I would have drawn the wedge. Nah, I would have had it tighter. I would have had this rising wedge like that. But as soon as it, breaks and okay, I'm losing clarity, that wedge isn't really helping me, get out of here. Now it's on the 12-hour. And the question is this a 12-hour head and shoulders? We just set our 12-hour lower high. So our new resistance is 630. And the simple statement is if 569 holds, bulls keep full control. If that level breaks, things are shifting structurally into weekly consolidation. So I like the 12-hour for clarity on OM. And again, you guessed it, it's an equilibrium. Low, high, higher low, lower high, tightening up. I looked at VVV the other day. That was a rising wedge that broke, well, won't say it broke bull just yet, but it's attempting to break bull. This candle closes in an hour and a half. So the most likely scenario here, I would be on the 2-day time frame just to smooth it out a little bit. And guess what? Equilibrium. What's our bounce retracement? We're not at 50% bounce retracement yet. But in terms of the significant percentage bounce, what I'd be looking for is a 2-day lower high and then a 2-day higher low once we top out. The 4-hour can be a guide. We're keeping this 4-hour uptrend the last couple of days. We have to confirm, we have to lose the 4-hour uptrend and confirm a 4-hour downtrend if we're going to see a 2-day lower high shaping up. Again, usually I don't use the 2-day time frame. I usually use the daily, but there's some little pivots in there. It all depends on what's most clear for you, but the concept is the same as far as what we're looking for as the most likely scenario. So again, Litecoin, ideally, it's looking for hourly oversold for a daily higher low. Whenever anybody asks me about an entry, my answer is always aggressive or conservative. An aggressive entry on Litecoin is going to look for a 4-hour higher low entry. And it's going to look for 15-minute oversold or some kind of 15-minute bullish reversal pattern to show us a 4-hour higher low is shaping up. If Litecoin is going to remain real strong, bulls need to hold this back test of previous resistance, now support. So that's an important support zone in the 109s for me now in the short term. So that's aggressive. Aggressive is looking for a 4-hour higher low. Patient is going to wait for a daily higher low. So, if the individual has no altcoin exposure, maybe they're going to go aggressive and make an attempt. If the individual is back holding a bunch of alts, you're definitely not going to go aggressive and keep adding more alts. So that's why I always ask the individual, because it can vary so much based on person to person. Do I agree alt season will only start when QE comes into play again by the Fed? I mean, it's definitely a major help. I don't think it's required. But I don't really let macro fundamentals significantly influence things. I mean, for me, it's 85% technical analysis that's going to be making my decisions. So it can be one piece of the puzzle, absolutely, but it's not going to be a significant factor for me. I mean, if the altcoins start showing us signs of bullish reversals, and if we confirm daily uptrends and things like that, I'm not going to be sitting there and saying, nope, doesn't count for the bulls because we don't have QE yet. Quantitative easing. Helium. Do gold and Bitcoin have a correlation? I mean, you're going to get opinions that differ, of course, but there is a bit of a correlation in terms of when one is consolidating and the other is breaking out, and vice versa. So gold was breaking out all summer 2024 into the fall, while Bitcoin was doing this. So Bitcoin sideways chopping, gold breaking out. Gold consolidation, November, December, sideways. Bitcoin, November, December breakout. And now Bitcoin sideways. I mean, yeah, absolutely. This just affirms it for me. We've got 3 perfect examples of the last 7 months where they have changed between sideways consolidation or bull flag consolidation while the other one's breaking out. So gold is breaking out. Again, that's 3 examples. I mean, you can't get more clear. So anybody that says no is wrong. How's that? I started off that analysis saying you can make the argument either way. No, that's very clear. Sideways Bitcoin, gold's breaking out. Sideways gold, Bitcoin's breaking out. Sideways Bitcoin, gold's breaking out. Any thoughts on NVDA correlation to crypto market? I've never noticed anything significantly. I mean, if you want to look at that, you're just saying NVDA correlation to the NASDAQ, NASDAQ correlation to the crypto market. Just because NVDA is such a significant factor in terms of the weight of the holdings in ETFs. All right. I did look at Doge and it didn't stand out. Which means, again, you know, the majority of the coins that you all are asking me about, the analysis that I've given that applies to 95% of all coins right now applies. So Doge, just to prove it, still within the range of the flush low, bounce high, setting the higher low, and we're going to watch for the potential of a lower high compared to the bounce high. If we are going to see not tightening ranges and bull breaks, we will have to see an uptick in volume. When you say something, there's the most likely scenario. If the less likely scenario is going to happen, which happens plenty, right? It's the most likely scenario. That can mean 75%. That means 1 out of 4 times the other thing's going to happen. If the less probable thing is going to happen, generally speaking, it has to be on higher volume. This applies to technical analysis. So keep an eye out for that. If the less likely thing is going to take place, it generally requires a volume spike. If Filecoin is the same thing, you're in big trouble, me. File what? Where's USD? Is fill the same thing as file? Yes. You're in trouble. Low the flush, higher the bounce, higher low. Same thing I just said 17 times. Sorry to hear FTX messed you up. Make believe, but appreciate the shout out. 9 years. We've only been around for 10. All right. Tariff talk means short-term volatility spikes, but again, the most likely scenarios keep happening. The NASDAQ chart has been unaffected from the most likely scenario by all of the headlines in the last 2 weeks. Again, if 2 weeks ago I could say an equilibrium is the most likely scenario, and here we are in this equilibrium, every headline from the last 2 weeks has not changed the most likely scenario. So yes, it does shift short, it shifts 5-minute charts, but that's it. I have not cared about the headlines at all when the charts are this clear. All right, appreciate you watching. Do good things. 65 likes, that sucks.